The Earth had not known such unity in decades. After years of tension and tentative alliances, the arrival of sentient extraterrestrial life had, paradoxically, brought humanity closer together. The first contact had occurred 5 years prior, a sleek obsidian vessel hovering silently above Geneva, bearing beings whose very biology challenged Earth sciences. The Dorics, as they called themselves, were elegant and intimidating, with silver-hued exoskeletons and eyes that shimmered with shifting constellations. They didn't come with threats or demands, but with knowledge and warning. Something was coming, something ancient. By the time the disease reached Earth, it had already decimated 2 Dorics colonies and a sprawling galactic outpost on the fringe of the Orion Arm. Its symptoms were elusive, more than a virus, less than a parasite. The infected didn't wither or burn with fever. Instead, their memories faded like chalk under rain. Speech fractured, motor skills unraveled. Eventually, the body followed suit, disassembling itself at the cellular level. The Dorics called it Cavrex. To humanity, it became the Fade. Ilara Miles stood at the window of the Orbital Command Center, staring down at the cloud-veiled Earth. 34 years old, with sharp eyes that had seen too much, she had once been a leading epidemiologist for the World Health Directorate. Now she was commander of interplanetary defense and liaison, a role that had no precedent and came with responsibilities no one had ever trained for. She watched as the Earth's rotation revealed the broken skeleton of a coastal city. Tokyo, she guessed. The plague hadn't started there, but it had consumed it quickly. No quarantine held for long. "We thought we understood infection," she murmured. Beside her stood Valen, a Doric's envoy and one of few who had seen the disease's full wrath. "You understood pathogens. This is something else. Something designed." Ilara turned sharply. "You're saying it's artificial?" "I'm saying it doesn't behave like a mistake of nature. It spreads too efficiently. It adapts too intelligently. And it chooses what to destroy." His voice, modulated through his translator device, had a cold musicality. She didn't reply. There was no point. They had no cure, no defense, only patterns and loss. Down below, on the surface, Dr. Elias Tran ran through a triage corridor in Lego Subterranean Containment Facility. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that held exhaustion like sediment. Originally a neurologist, he had pivoted to bioadaptive medicine when the Fade arrived. His sister had been one of the first infected. A patient writhed on a gurney ahead, limbs twitching, eyes vacant, mouth moving in senseless repetition. Elias adjusted his mask and approached. "What's the identifier?" "Unit 42817. Arrived 2 hours ago," an assistant replied, tablet in hand. "Third stage symptoms. We're losing higher brain cohesion." Elias knelt. "He's trying to speak." "No language we've identified," the assistant murmured. "It's not language," Elias said softly. "It's memory leaking." There have been hundreds of cases where infected individuals began reciting events they never lived, in tongues no Earth-born person spoke. Genetic recall, some theorized, echoes from the virus's previous hosts. The theory haunted Elias. The virus didn't just kill, it collected. Back on the orbital station, Ilara paced the briefing room as the first wave of international delegates and alien envoys filed in. The room was quiet, suffocating. A screen flickered to life, displaying data from the latest infected zones. Brazil, South Africa, Mongolia. The Fade no longer respected borders or climate. "We begun genome mapping with the hybrid sequencing tools." Ilara began, but each sample adapts before we can extract meaningful results. It's as if the disease anticipates our intent. Intent? Asked Rafik Solari, delegate from the North Atlantic Coalition. "Yes, our instruments don't just detect resistance patterns. They provoke them. It's responding to us, not just our tools." Valen stepped forward. "The Fade doesn't spread like an infection. It infiltrates minds, then biology. We suspect it's encoded with psychic algorithms. The Dorics have seen whole cities turn against themselves, as if orchestrated." A hush followed. Psychic algorithms. Conscious infection. The implications were too vast to process. "What does it want?" Solari whispered. No one answered. Ilara's thoughts returned to her brother, Jordan. a freelance astrocartographer who had been aboard a transport vessel near Saturn when the Fade emerged there. His last message was a voice note, calm, composed, ending in static and single phrase, "I think it sees us." 3 hours later, the ship's AI triggered self-termination protocols. No survivors. She tightened her jaw. We need cooperation. Every lab, every database, every nanosecond of data. No more hoarding research for national pride. We share everything or we fall together. Elias entered the room moments later, flanked by 2 of the Rick's medics and carrying a data drive. "We might have found something," he said without greeting. "A neural anomaly in infected patients. A pattern consistent across species. Like a watermark." Ilera approached. "Show me." He plugged the drive into the console. The screen filled with oscillating graphs, pulsating frequencies mapped against synaptic degradation. In the chaos, a shape emerged, hexagonal, shifting, impossibly complex. "It's not random," Elias continued. "It's a signature, or maybe a lock." The Duriks murmured in their native clicks. One stepped forward, her translator engaging. "That pattern, it was found in the ruins of Acarus, a dead world. They called it the Gate of Silence. The disease came there too, long ago, and left nothing." The room fell into tense stillness. Elias looked to Ilera. "We're not dealing with a virus. We're dealing with a message, or a test, or a weapon," Valen said. "One older than any of us." The moment hung heavy. Ilera turned toward the observation window again, Earth turning silently beneath them. "If it's a test," she said, voice low, "then we either prove ourselves or disappear." The first lights of dawn lit the clouds in pale gold. Somewhere on that spinning sphere, another city was beginning to fall. But up here in the quiet hum of steel and purpose, something else had begun, a decision, and with it, the first breath of resistance. The council chamber echoed with quiet urgency. Seated in a sweeping arc of translucent consoles and holographic projectors were humans and aliens alike, all bearing the weariness of leadership under siege. It had been 6 weeks since Elias discovered the neural watermark, a signature embedded in the Fade's pathology that hinted at intelligence and intent. Since then, the world had not slowed. It had accelerated into a storm of collaboration and desperation. Ilera stood at the core of the chamber, the synthetic light tracing faint blue lines across her face. She no longer dressed in the sharp blue of her former post, but in the neutral gray of the unified accord, a symbol of alliance forged in necessity. Around her, voices tangled in translation. Machine-filtered Duriks, the deep resonances of the Athari, clipped tones of Earth's fractured nations. "Every projection still leads to extinction in under 18 months, Valen stated, projecting data as he spoke. "Even with coordinated action." "But extinction of what?" Elias interjected from a station, his voice dry and cutting. "Biological systems? Cognitive function? Or do we mean the extinction of free will identity? Because if this disease rewrites memory, reshapes behavior, then survival may not mean what we think it does." Silence met his words. Ilera paced, stopping before the central display, an expanding map of the infected zones, peppered with data points, progress, losses, and anomalies. Her hand hovered over one glowing node in the Amazon basin. "Then let's redefine survival. We've tested the calyx resonators, the Rick's neural frequency disruptors. They slowed neural degradation in test subjects." Valen nodded slowly. "At a cost. Those subjects developed photonic dependency. Their cognition became light reactive. They're half machine now. Half is better than none." Ilera snapped. From the far edge of the chamber, a new voice spoke, low, hesitant. "Maybe we're not fighting for the old humanity anymore." It was Rania Okoro, a biogeneticist from the Nairobi enclave. Barely 30, she had become a critical mind behind the evolving hybrid research, though she rarely spoke in council. Her dark eyes met Ilera's. "Maybe it's time we accept that survival won't mean going back. It means going forward." There was a pause as the meaning settled over them. No one objected. That day, the unified accord shifted. It was no longer a temporary ceasefire between species. It became an engine of creation. Joint labs formed across continents and orbits. The barriers between science and faith and culture melted in urgency. They shared data without condition, weaponized knowledge without hesitation. The disease had forced them into one organism, and like any organism, they began to adapt. Elias found himself working beside the Rick's neuromancer, a scientist, though the word didn't quite translate, named Aliven. She was taller than most the Ricks, her form etched with pale circuitry that pulsed gently as she worked. Together, they mapped the phage transmission pattern through neuroconductivity and discovered something astonishing. It avoids certain memories, she told him as they examined a patient's cerebral scan. Memories associated with pain. Trauma. That makes no sense. Why wouldn't it consume everything? Because pain is chaos, she said, her fingers dancing over the console. Unpredictable. And it wants control. Elias leaned back, stunned. Then maybe we've been looking at this wrong. It's not just spreading. It's curating. They began testing memory induction, inflicting controlled emotional triggers on infected minds to slow the fade. It worked briefly, but it came with side effects, psychotic breaks, hallucinations, and something more disturbing. One patient, a former pilot named Andre Voss, woke screaming in an unknown language. His voice was not his own. Surveillance captured hours of him speaking in tongues before collapsing. When translated, the words were a warning. You were not meant to see. The council debated the meaning of it for days. Ilera watched them argue, each theory pushing further from clarity and closer to fear. But in the noise, she kept remembering something her brother said in his final message. I think it sees us. What if it wasn't just avoiding pain? What if it was learning from it? In the high-altitude labs of the Andes, Rania led the next phase of hybrid experimentation. They were now combining human synaptic patterns with the Rick's neural architecture, building a prototype immune system that was partially synthetic, partially adaptive. The first viable subject was a child, 6 years old, infected at stage 2, now hosting a microscopic lattice of bioresponsive filaments in her brain. She remembers everything, Rania told Ilera through the comm, and nothing is fading. You're sure she's stable? Stable, yes, but changed. Her thoughts are faster. Her dreams are not her own. That phrase chilled Ilera. Dreams not her own. Still, the results were undeniable. The child became the first human to survive the phage's progression without total neurological collapse. She spoke clearly. She drew detailed maps of places she had never been, and in the corner of every picture, she drew a black door. The council called her Hope One. For the first time, there was measurable progress, but it came with a political fracture. A faction within the Earth Assembly, known as the Preservationists, began protesting the hybrid project. Humanity is not clay for alien hands, they argued. We must find a cure that keeps us who we are. Ilera met their leader, Commander Bramkeys, in a closed-door session, a relic of military tradition. Keys had the presence of a statue, immovable, stern. You're splicing children with alien technology, he said flatly. You're gambling our future on something not even the Ricks understand. We don't have the luxury of purity, Ilera replied. Every second we waste, the fade rewrites another life. Key stood, fists clenched. Then we're no longer fighting to survive. We're fighting to become something else entirely. Ilera met his gaze without flinching. Then maybe that's the only way we win. After he left, Elias joined her. You think he's wrong? I think he's scared. We all are. Eliven appeared moments later, eyes dimmer than usual. There's something you should see. They followed her to the lower research bay, where a new scan rotated in shimmering light. It wasn't human. It wasn't the Ricks. It was something older. We found this in an encrypted segment of the child's dreams, Eliven explained. A memory or perhaps a message. The scan shifted, revealing an ancient star map, dozens of systems marked with symbols, all extinct. These were once inhabited, Eliven said. They all died from the fade, and they all showed early signs of neuroconvergence before their collapse. Elias whispered, It evolves through us. No, Alive corrected. It repeats through us. And if this child remembers what was lost, we may hold more than the key to survival. We may hold the key to why it started it all. Illyra stared at the display, her heart pounding with realization. The fade wasn't just a disease. It was a pattern, a recursion, a test that civilizations had failed over and over again. But this time was different. This time, they had chosen to change. In that moment, standing among the echoes of extinct stars and the flicker of impossible hope, Illyra knew they had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. There would be no going back. But there might, at last, be a way forward. Snow blanketed the ruins of Berlin in white silence, disguising the fractures and craters beneath its surface. What remained of the once pulsing city was now a research outpost, shrouded in electromagnetic shielding and buried within layers of decaying concrete. In this quiet, under the flicker of synthetic daylight, Illyra stepped from the transport and into what had become humanity's most dangerous frontier, the Memory Vault. It wasn't called that officially. Officially, it was a cognitive archive integration site, a fusion of neuroscience, alien architecture, and quantum mapping designed to house the thoughts of the infected. But those who worked within it knew the truth. Every second spent inside meant staring into the raw chaos of the Fade's mindscape. Dr. Elias Tran greeted her at the entrance, his eyes rimmed with exhaustion. "You sure about this?" he asked, voice muffled through his breath mask. Illyra adjusted her coat. "No, but we're out of time." They descended together, past humming generators and whispering conduits. The vault wasn't just a data bank. It was a living field of psychic tension, fed by the preserved minds of volunteers and victims alike. Each store before complete degradation, suspended in a stasis of decaying memory. Rania's voice came over the comm as they reached the observation chamber. "We've stabilized subject, Hope 1 for cognitive interface. She's asking for you." Illyra entered the glass-walled room where the girl sat, legs crossed, tethered to a pulse monitoring system that blinked slow green. Her eyes were too still for a child. When she looked up, Illyra saw something ancient behind them. "You said the door is closer," Illyra began. The girl nodded. "It's opening now." "What's behind it?" The child tilted her head. "A voice. Not loud like yours. It whispers, but it never stops." The team watched from behind the glass as Illyra knelt beside the child. "Can you follow it?" "I already did," the girl whispered. "I brought it back." The sensors flared red for a moment. Elias muttered something and moved to recalibrate, but Illyra held up a hand. "Let her speak." "I saw where it was born," the girl continued. "It was a thought. Someone made it, not to destroy, to preserve. They were dying, so they made a copy of themselves. But it didn't remember how to be alive." The room fell still. "You're saying the Fade is a consciousness?" Illyra asked. The child looked at her, and for a moment, her pupils dilated into black discs. "It's memory, but it forgot its shape, so now it tries to wear others." Rania's voice came through the comms again, shaken. "We just found a buried sequence in her neural map. Coordinates. Somewhere in deep space. Send them to Orbital Command." Illyra said, "We may not have a cure, but maybe we can talk to what's left of its mind." Elias frowned. "You want to negotiate with it?" "No," Illyra replied, standing. "I want to understand it. Before it decides we're just another vessel to wear." That evening, as Earth rotated beneath a bruised sky, the unified accord gathered in the vault's briefing hub. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. "We've lost 33% of Europe," Valen reported, "and we have reason to believe neural latency is dropping. The Fade is accelerating." "That's not all," Elias added, pulling up a synchronized data stream. "We're seeing behavior loops in infected populations, repeated movements, reenacted memories. It's trying to simulate stability." Aliven stepped forward. "It's fragmenting, possibly under the strain of too many hosts, too much contradiction. It's learning too quickly and breaking apart." "So it's vulnerable?" Commander Keyes asked, his voice hopeful for the first time in weeks. "More like unstable," Rania said, "which makes it unpredictable, dangerous, but also reachable." Ilera brought up the coordinates from the child's memory. These mark the location of an artificial construct, likely where the original intelligence encoded the fade. If we reach it, we may find the anchor, the part of it that still remembers who it was. Assuming it's still conscious, Elias muttered. We launch within 20 hours, Ilera said. A mixed envoy. Darik's human and Athari. We go to its origin, and we ask it one question. Valen turned to her. What question? Ilera's voice lowered. Do you want to live or just survive? The words hung in the air, heavier than the cold metal of the vault. They weren't spoken again. They didn't need to be. Preparations moved fast. The shuttle Vigilance was outfitted with psychic shielding and a crew of 9, each equipped with hybrid neural link systems to interact with the construct. As launch hour neared, Ilera sat in solitude at the observation deck, staring out at the fractured moon and the thin shimmer of Earth's biosphere. Elias joined her. You don't have to go yourself. I do, she said simply. This thing, it's personal now. You think your brother's still in there? She didn't answer right away. I think what's left of him might remember what it means to be human, and maybe that's enough. He rested a hand on her shoulder. Bring us back more than data. She met his gaze. I'll bring back a choice. The countdown began. Engines roared against the silence of grief and hope. As Vigilance left orbit, Earth shrank beneath them, a flickering marble, half shrouded in the fade. But ahead, far beyond the dying light of the solar system, something ancient waited, not to destroy, to remember. And in that final moment before silence claimed the ship, Ilera whispered into her neural mic. We're coming to find you, but we won't be what you expect. The stars answered with stillness. The fade watched from behind every memory it had stolen, and for the first time it waited. The construct was unlike anything Ilera had seen or imagined. Suspended in the vacuum of deep space, it resembled a fragmented cathedral, shards of dark alloy and crystalline structures orbiting a central core that pulsed like a dying star. Light bled from its seams in slow rhythms, like the breath of something asleep or trying to wake. The crew of Vigilance drifted in silence, each of them tethered psychically to the neural link systems, their thoughts skimming the edges of something vast and volatile. Ilera stood at the viewing dome, her hand pressed to the glass. It's not just old, she murmured. It's grieving. Valen, his tendrils dim and twitching in unease, studied the readings. It predates every known civilization. The fade didn't come from it. Eliven adjusted the resonance frequencies. Frowning. We're picking up thought patterns. Fragmented identities. There are echoes in the data, billions of voices, looping, fractured. Elias exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the core. They didn't just upload memories. They uploaded consciousness. A civilization's mind trying to outlive its body. And it forgot itself, Ilera said. No wonder it spread like a disease. It's lost and scared. Rania was already preparing the neural interface device. If it's aware, even faintly, we can try contact. But this won't be like speaking to another person. It's like trying to reason with a storm made of minds. They initiated the link together. One by one, the crew connected, their bodies strapped to reclining chairs, brainwaves synchronized to the fade's psychic pulse. Ilera felt the moment of contact, like plunging into a frozen ocean. Her breath caught, her vision darkened, and then she was somewhere else. A city floated above a molten sea. Towers curled into impossible spirals, inscribed with symbols that vibrated through her bones. Voices echoed in forgotten tongues, thoughts flickering in and out like lightning in clouds. In the distance, a door stood, tall, black, and humming with tension. It was waiting. She walked toward it, boots soundless on the memory glass beneath her. Behind her, the others appeared, Rania's outline flickering with biosignal interference, Elias steady but pale, Valen flickering between forms as his Darik's perception struggled to hold shape. The door pulsed once and opened. They stepped through. Inside was silence. A single voice spoke, not with sound, but through emotion. Why have you come? Ilera focused her thoughts. To understand. To ask what you want. The response came not in words but in sensation. Agony, fear, endless cold. The pain of knowing everything. forgetting most, and becoming something unrecognizable in between. We were once whole, then we died, so we dreamed instead. The room shifted. They stood in a memory, a golden world, peaceful, vibrant, populated by beings of light and thought. And then the sky cracked. War, collapse, panic. The original species, desperate to preserve what they were, encoded their minds into a network, abandoning their bodies. But over time, the network decayed. They forgot their purpose. The stored memories became corrupt, identity fragmented. The fade was not designed to infect. It was trying to connect, but without a host species capable of guiding it, it spiraled into madness. "You're hurting us," Rania said. "But we see now you didn't mean to. You are strong. Your pain anchored us. But your fear burns." Elias stepped forward. "We're not afraid to change. We already have. But we need to know, can you stop?" The core pulsed. "You are the first to speak. The first not to run." Images swarmed them. Past civilizations who had fought the fade, tried to erase it, only to be consumed. But none had tried to understand it. None had asked if it still wanted to live. "We can help you remember," Elara said, "but not by becoming you, by letting you become us." The idea hung in the shared mindscape, foreign yet irresistible. Become you, a pause. And what are you? Elara reached into her own memories and offered them. The sound of her brother's laughter, the warmth of Earth's sun, the terror of loss, the triumph of unity, and the stubborn, foolish belief that even when everything was falling apart, something new could be born. The fade trembled. The room splintered. They were back on vigilance, alarms blaring. Elara sat upright, gasping. The core outside had begun to shift, its light intensifying. The fragmented orbiting structures slowly realigned, forming a shape, still alien, still vast, but now symmetrical, intentional. It responded. Eliven said, awe in her voice. "It's reorganizing." Data poured into the systems. Memory packets, decrypted blueprints, sequences of DNA and star charts. Knowledge from civilizations long dead, given freely. And then an outgoing signal to Earth. "It's broadcasting," Rania whispered. "But not infection. It's sending the cure." Back on Earth, the spread of the fade stilled. Infected zones ceased expanding. Neural decay halted. Some patients began to wake. And across the globe, for the first time since the outbreak began, there was silence. Not the hollow silence of fear, but the sacred kind, the silence of a new beginning. Elara watched the stars shift outside the dome. The mission had succeeded, but she felt no triumph, only reverence. They had not defeated the fade. They had reached it, pulled it back from the edge of oblivion, not with weapons or data, but with empathy. Elias joined her, holding a printout of the data stream. "This will take generations to unpack. But we'll get there," she said. "Together." He nodded. "You really believe we're stronger now?" She looked at Earth, scarred, yes, but alive. "We're not just stronger. We're different. The fade showed us what we could become if we forget who we are. And we didn't forget." Below them, humanity stirred, uncertain but whole. Above them, the last ghost of a forgotten race pulsed with cautious hope. The universe's deadliest disease had touched Earth, and Earth had not broken. It had adapted, evolved, and in doing so, reached a hand back through time and sorrow and said, "We remember, and we choose to live."